Hello, I'm Natalie Pion. I'm Conservation Advisor with the RSPB in Shetland, and I have been coordinating the monitoring elements of the ParkLife project. And I will now give you a brief introduction to this project. So farmland waders, which include the curlew, the lapwing, oystercatcher, redshank and snipe, are a national conservation priority because their populations are declining rapidly. The main breeding habitats are in-by wet grasslands and wetlands that are managed through agricultural activities. In Shetland, the populations of in-by waders still appear relatively healthy, and most crofters can claim at least one pair of shalder or wap. To protect these birds, we need to ensure the crofting landscape mosaic that they depend on is maintained. In terms of agri-environment schemes, we have seen a succession of programs in the last 30 years. The graph shows the area of land under agri-environment contract. After a peak in the mid-2000s in the ESA, the uptake has only gone down with each scheme for a variety of reasons. And this situation is supporting neither farm businesses nor the environment. So in the summer of 2018, the Shetland Agri-Environment Group, which brings together representatives of agricultural and conservation organisations and interested farmers and crofters, started to meet with a common interest in trying to secure a sustainable future for both agriculture and the environment in Shetland. We asked the question of how the environmental assets that Shetland is valued for could be protected and rewarded. And that's how the ParkLife project came about. So we heard about the results-based schemes in Ireland that had completely turned around the approach to agri-environment support and wondered how we could develop such a scheme here in Shetland. We were granted funding in March 2020 from the Scottish Government Knowledge Transfer and Innovation Fund, and we chose to explore how to build capacity for farmers and crofters to take a leadership role in managing environmental resources. And to do that, the first step would be to train land managers to monitor biodiversity on their own land. And we focused on waders as a target species. The Shetland Agri-Environment Group is the project steering group, and we recruited 10 land managers from a range of locations and farm systems within Shetland. We asked them to survey waders and their habitats during the breeding season this year. And this started at the same time as we went into lockdown, so we had to be a bit creative and flexible, and we managed to deliver some online training and provided remote support. I also did some worm counts and collected soil samples on each of the survey areas. The participants were interviewed at the start and at the end to measure the impact the project had and what had gone well and what could be improved. In particular, we were interested in how they felt about the surveys. On the whole, the experience seemed to have been positive and rewarding, and we will hear more about their experience in a minute. So the data that the group collected was then used to create a wader grassland scorecard. The process of developing the scorecard is both interesting and challenging, and a range of stakeholders have been involved in the discussions. This is creating a useful conversation around land management and conservation. Longer term, the aim is for the scoring to become a standard for measuring wader grassland quality in Shetland, and for farmers and crofters to use it as a tool to deliver good habitats for waders. We have also produced a habitat management guide specific to the Shetland landscape, and it is now available for free. So ParkLife is a project that has engaged with a small group of farmers and crofters, and the challenge now will be to secure funding to deliver management on the ground and drive an increase in wader habitat scores across the landscape. There will also be other important habitats and species that need to be looked at, and most significantly, peat habitats, which protection and restoration is key in tackling the climate crisis in Shetland. We have started this process through the Nature Scott Probas project, which is presented in another talk. Now I will leave 3 of the project participants to share their experience. Thank you.
Hello, I'm Amy Budge from Bigton Farm on Shetland. I'm a farmer here in the south mainland of Shetland. We have 90 suckler cows here and about 500 breeding sheep. We also grow 60 acres of barley.
I'm Stuart Balfour, and this is the craft Linnister Solom in North Maven, Shetland. We have some Shetland cattle, and we also grow some Shetland crops like Shetland oats and Shetland kale.
Hello, I'm Duncan Gray. I'm a crofter in Onston, Shetland. We're as far north as you can go in the British Isles. We run about 500 head of sheep and half a dozen cattle.
We took part in the wider project. We started in May and it went through till about the end of July. And over that period then we did 3 or 4 surveys spaced out through that time, looking at the different birds, where they were nesting and doing bird counts through that time. And we also did a survey into the habitat that they were in, the vegetation and the wildflowers and that, which was also very interesting.
We got really simple guides to follow, which really helped, and it meant that you knew exactly what you were meant to do. We were out checking the stock and I just noted when I saw a bird or we saw birds nesting.
But in this area we had 4 out of the 5 species nesting.
My father and parents were very interested in it, and they'd pass on what the different bird species was. So I was able to identify most of them and where they would be, but I think I've gained more knowledge through doing the survey, I'd say, and how to identify them and see different areas that you'd expect to find them in.
The survey itself was enlightening in a way. It showed you what areas the birds were nesting in, or made you pay more attention to what area the birds were nesting in. They'd always been here anyway.
The survey has made me be more aware of the nesting birds that are on the farm and made me realise just to look out for them.
If there was an opportunity to take part in a survey again, I would do it, especially in areas where I put in additional weather scripts just to see if it made any difference or no.
The more people that's doing that, the better. Then we have a wider area we're covering, and I think it's good for your knowledge and good to know what's around you.
For anybody that's not taken part in a survey like this before, it's no difficult to do, and it does show you what weather is on your land and what difference you can make to encourage them in.
It doesn't take much to manage the land that the birds like and what habitats they prefer. It was just rewarding to see that these rougher patches of land that's a bit wet has life in them, and that was just really rewarding to see the nature alive in those places.
In the future then we'll just continue maintaining the same practices we have, trying not to disturb the habitat too much that they're thriving in, and maybe look at different ways that we can improve on things.
Because of the locations that crofters occupy is very important for supporting wildlife, because we're in the rural edge.
I think it all really works together. There's a lot of different bird species that come here to feed. For example, we have, when we harvest the nuts and that, then we get the twite and different birds like that coming and feeding. And we have the oyster catchers strangely nested just in the middle of that field in the spring.
Wading birds and any birds can live alongside livestock. They really work in harmony with each other because The livestock prepare the habitat for the birds that they then can use to nest on.
In the future, for looking after the environment on the craft, we need some sort of support system in place that encourages crafters and farmers to maximise the wildlife instead of maximising production. If the wildlife has a value, the wildlife will be looked after.